My dear friends, have you ever wondered what stirs in the heart when pride whispers its subtle lies? Once there was a light so radiant it rivaled the dawn, a being called the morning star, whose beauty captivated all of heaven. Yet, in that brilliance, a shadow was born, a shadow that would shake the foundations of eternity. Let me share with you a story, not of triumph, but of a fall, a tale that speaks to the fragility of even the greatest among us. In the beginning, before the stars were kindled or the earth took form, there was only God, infinite and eternal. With a single word, he wove heaven into being, a realm of unimaginable beauty where rivers of living water sparkled like crystal and golden fields shimmered under his divine light. No sun or moon cast their glow here, the radiance of God himself filled every corner, bathing all in his glory. It was in this sacred place that the angels were born, countless in number, each a reflection of his boundless creativity. Among them, one stood apart, crafted with a splendor that surpassed all others. His name was Lucifer, the light-bearer, the morning star. Lucifer was no ordinary angel. God adorned him with a beauty that mirrored the divine, his countenance glowing like the first light of dawn, his voice a melody that stirred the heavens. He was the pinnacle of creation, unmatched in wisdom, grace, and power. To him was given a noble purpose, to lead the celestial choirs, to conduct the worship that rose like incense before the throne of God. With every note he sang, with every act of devotion, Lucifer poured himself into this calling, seeking to honor the one who had made him so magnificent. In those early days, his heart was pure, his love untainted. He moved in harmony with the other angels, their voices blending in songs of praise, their unity a testament to the Creator's perfect design. Heaven was a symphony, and Lucifer was its maestro. Yet, even in this paradise, a subtle shift began. Lucifer's brilliance, his unmatched splendor, became a weight upon his heart. At first, it was but a fleeting thought, a whisper so faint it seemed harmless. Why must I, who am so great, serve another? He was the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and beauty. His light outshone every angel, his voice commanded the very choirs of heaven. Why then should he bow? Why should his glory reflect another's and not shine for its own sake? These thoughts, though small, were like seeds sown in fertile soil. Each time he pushed them away, they returned, stronger, bolder, rooting deeper within him. As time passed, what began as a whisper grew into a conviction. Lucifer began to see himself not as a servant, but as an equal to the one who created him, perhaps even greater. I am destined for more, he thought. I deserve a throne of my own. The harmony of heaven, once his joy, now felt like a cage, restraining the fullness of his potential. Pride, that slow and silent poison, had taken hold. It convinced him that the light he bore was his own, not a gift from the Creator. It blinded him to the beauty of his purpose, twisting his gratitude into ambition. The songs of worship, once sincere, began to falter in his heart. All he could see was himself, and all he desired was more. The seeds of pride, once planted, do not remain dormant. They grow, silently but relentlessly, twisting the heart until what was once pure becomes a shadow of its former self. In Lucifer's mind, the thought of his own greatness consumed him. He began to question the very order of heaven, the divine design that had once filled him with awe. Why must I, the morning star, remain beneath the throne? He asked himself. Am I not worthy of adoration? Am I not capable of ruling as he does? These questions were no longer fleeting. They were a fire, burning brighter with each passing moment. The harmony of heaven, the unity he had once cherished, began to fade from his sight. All he could see was the throne he desired, a throne he believed was rightfully his. Lucifer's pride did not remain a private struggle. He knew that to challenge the Creator, he could not stand alone. Heaven was vast, its hosts countless, and his ambition required allies, angels of power, wisdom, and influence who could share his vision or be persuaded to embrace it. With the skill of a master orator, he began to weave his words, subtle at first, like a gentle breeze stirring the surface of a still lake. He sought out those closest to him in rank, the archangels and dominions who held sway over heaven's realms. In quiet corners of the celestial courts, he posed questions that seemed innocent yet carried the weight of rebellion. Have you ever considered why we, who are so glorious, must forever serve? He asked. Does not our light deserve to shine for its own sake, free from the shadow of another? Some angels dismissed his words, their loyalty to God unshaken, their hearts anchored in the love that had created them. But others paused. They listened. In their eyes, Lucifer saw a flicker of curiosity, a spark of recognition of their own magnificence. These were the ones he pursued, drawing them closer with promises of a new heaven, a kingdom where they would no longer bow but reign. He spoke of freedom, of a realm where their splendor would be celebrated, where their voices would rise not in worship of another but in celebration of themselves. His words were like honey, sweet and enticing, appealing to the pride that lay dormant in their hearts. Slowly, he planted seeds of doubt, nurturing them with visions of a future where they could be more than servants, more than reflections of divine glory. As his influence grew, Lucifer's whispers turned to declarations. He no longer spoke in secret but openly, rallying those who had begun to share his discontent. "We are the brightest of creation," he proclaimed. "Why should we remain bound to a throne that overshadows us? Let us rise, let us claim what is ours." His voice, once a symphony of worship, now carried the cadence of rebellion. One by one, angels of great power, thrones, powers, and principalities abandoned their appointed places. They saw themselves not as God's servants but as rulers in waiting, their hearts kindled with the same fire that burned in Lucifer. A third of heaven's hosts, a multitude too vast to number, turned their allegiance to him. Their wings, once lifted in praise, now beat with the rhythm of ambition. Their songs, once offered to the Creator, now echoed Lucifer's vision of a new order. The rebellion was no longer a thought, no longer a whisper. It was a movement, a force that rippled through the golden courts of heaven. Lucifer organized his followers with precision, assigning ranks and leaders to command the legions that had pledged themselves to his cause. In secret, they prepared for war, forging plans to challenge the very foundations of God's throne. The harmony that had once defined heaven was fractured, replaced by the murmur of dissent, the clash of divided loyalties. Yet, even as Lucifer stood at the head of his army, a voice pierced the heavens, resonant and eternal. It was the voice of God calling to him with a mixture of sorrow and authority. "Lucifer," he said, "return to me. This path leads only to ruin." For a moment, the weight of those words hung in the air, a plea wrapped in divine love. The loyal angels, those who had not wavered, paused, their eyes fixed on the morning star, hoping he might turn back. But Lucifer's heart was hardened. Pride had woven its chains around him, and he could no longer see the light he had once reflected. "My will is my own," he declared, his voice echoing with defiance. "I will not bow, not to you, not to anyone." With those words, the die was cast. Heaven, the realm of perfect peace, became a battlefield. God's response was swift and resolute. From the throne, he summoned his faithful angels, led by Michael, an archangel whose humility and faith burned brighter than Lucifer's pride. Though smaller in stature, Michael's strength came not from himself but from his unwavering trust in the Creator. The command was given, and Michael and his angels rose to defend the throne of God. The war that followed was unlike anything creation had ever known. Light clashed with shadow, fire met fire, and the skies of heaven trembled with the fury of the conflict. Swords of divine flame met in thunderous strikes, and the beating of countless wings shook the very foundations of the celestial realm. Lucifer and his followers fought with desperation, driven by the belief that they could seize the throne, that their light could outshine the Creator's. Yet Michael's forces were not alone. The power of God surged through them, a radiance that no rebellion could withstand. Lucifer, for all his brilliance, could not match the infinite might of the one who had made him. The tide of battle turned, and the rebellion began to falter. In a moment of blinding clarity, heaven's light erupted with an intensity that pierced the heart of the revolt. Lucifer was struck down, his radiant form cast from the heights of glory. With him fell the angels who had joined his cause, their wings faltering, their light dimming. The fall was not merely a descent but a severance, a tearing away from the harmony and love they had once known. The morning star, once the brightest of all, plummeted into darkness, his name now a whisper of warning rather than a song of praise. Where does one go when cast from the light of heaven? The fall of Lucifer was not merely a descent through the skies but a plunge into a realm of desolation, a place where the radiance of God's presence could no longer reach. When the tumult of battle ceased, Lucifer found himself in a void, a chaotic shadow of the glory he had once known. The rivers of living water, the golden fields, the harmony of angelic choirs, all were gone. In their place was darkness, a realm of discord where peace could not dwell. His wings, once radiant with divine light, were now dimmed, their splendor a fading memory. His name, once a song of praise, became a curse whispered in fear and sorrow. Around him gathered the angels who had followed his rebellion, their faces etched with the same bitterness that now defined him. They were no longer the shining hosts of heaven but exiles bound to a place of eternal separation. Yet, even in this abyss, Lucifer's resolve did not waver. His pride, though it had led to his ruin, burned brighter than ever. "If I cannot claim the throne of heaven," he declared to his fallen brethren, "I will build a kingdom here." And so, in the desolation of his exile, he became what he is now, not Lucifer, the morning star, but Satan, the prince of darkness. He forged a realm born of rebellion, a kingdom built on the ashes of his defiance. But as he surveyed his new domain, there was no joy, no fulfillment. The throne he had envisioned for himself was a hollow shadow, its glory tainted by the loss of all he had once cherished. The unity of heaven, the love that had bound him to his Creator, was replaced by a gnawing emptiness. Yet his anger sustained him. If he could not ascend to God's throne, he would wage war against his creation, ensuring that the light of divine love would be dimmed wherever he could reach. From the shadows of his exile, Satan watched as God's creation unfolded. Though cast out, he was not wholly severed from the divine realm. He could still see the works of the Creator, and what he saw reignited his hatred. God, in his infinite wisdom, formed a new creation, beings unlike any before them. They were called Adam and Eve, the first of humanity, crafted not from light but from the dust of the earth. Frail and finite, they seemed unworthy of the Creator's attention, yet they bore a gift that pierced Satan's heart. They were made in the image of God, a reflection of his divine nature. Where once Lucifer had been the brightest of creation, these mortal beings now held the place he had coveted. They were given free will, the power to choose, to love, to walk in harmony with their Creator. And God loved them with a tenderness that Satan could no longer comprehend. In the Garden of Eden, a paradise of beauty and abundance, Adam and Eve lived in perfect communion with God. Rivers watered the lush lands, and every tree bore fruit for their delight. They walked with God, their hearts unburdened by shame or fear, their lives untouched by pain or death. Satan watched, his envy growing with every moment. The closeness they shared with the Creator, the joy that radiated from their innocence, was a reminder of all he had lost. Why should these fragile creatures be exalted? He thought. Why should they receive the love that was once mine? The insult was unbearable. If he could not reclaim heaven, he would destroy the bond between God and his new creation. He would turn their free will, their greatest gift, into their downfall. Satan's plan was born of cunning and malice. In the heart of Eden stood the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the one tree from which Adam and Eve were forbidden to eat. It was a test of their obedience, a reminder that their freedom was bound to God's will. Satan saw in this single command an opportunity. If he could lead them to disobey, he could shatter the harmony of Eden and mar the perfection of God's creation. With the skill of a tempter, he entered the garden not as the radiant prince he had once been, but as a serpent, subtle and deceptive. Approaching Eve, he chose his words with care, knowing that trust could be broken with a single seed of doubt. "Did God truly say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" he asked, his voice smooth and inviting. Eve, innocent and trusting, replied, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God said, you must not eat fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die." Her words revealed her faith, but also a hint of uncertainty. Satan seized upon it. "You will not surely die," he lied, weaving truth and falsehood into a promise that glittered with allure. "God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." It was the same temptation that had consumed him, the desire to rise above, to claim what was not his. He watched as Eve's gaze lingered on the fruit, its beauty stirring her curiosity. Doubt battled with trust, desire with obedience. Then she reached out, took the fruit, and ate. She gave some to Adam, and he too ate. In that moment, the harmony of Eden shattered. Shame replaced innocence, and the bond with their Creator was fractured. When God called to them, his voice carried both sorrow and justice. He knew what they had done, and he knew who had led them astray. Satan felt no remorse, only triumph. Humanity, the pinnacle of God's creation, had fallen, just as he had. But his victory was hollow, for God's love did not falter. Even in their disobedience, He promised redemption, a seed of hope that would one day crush the serpent's head. Satan's war continued, not with swords but with whispers, sowing pride, greed, and despair in the hearts of humanity. Through the ages, he became the accuser, the tempter, seeking to draw every soul away from the Creator. Yet, no matter how deep the darkness he spread, there were always those who clung to faith, their light shining in defiance of his schemes. My dear friends, the story of Lucifer is not merely a tale of rebellion and ruin. It is a mirror held before us all. Pride, that silent poison, whispers to each of us, tempting us to believe we are greater than we are, that our light is our own. It blinds us to the beauty of our purpose, to the love that sustains us. But we are not without hope. The God who created us, who walked with Adam and Eve in the garden, walks with us still. He calls us to humility, to trust, to choose his love over the fleeting promises of pride. Be vigilant, for the tempter's voice is subtle, often cloaked in the guise of wisdom or freedom. Listen instead to the voice of the Creator, who offers life, forgiveness, and a love that endures forever. If this story has stirred your heart, if it has opened your eyes to the whispers in your own life, I invite you to share it with others. Give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that challenge, inspire, and draw us closer to the truth. Let us walk together in humility, reflecting the light of the one who made us, until we meet again in the embrace of his eternal love.